Hey everyone, how's it going? I hope you're all doing great, as I always say. Staying happy, healthy, and hydrated, the three H's of the channel. And in this video, it's all about West Virginia. So, if you're a fan of John Denver, I know he's not actually from West Virginia, but the song Country Roads is still really good. Anyways, if this sounds like something that you're interested in, definitely pull up a stump with me, and let's jump into it. Thank you for watching. So I live on the outskirts of Point Pleasant, West Virginia. I moved here, 1, because it's beautiful around here, 2, the Mothman, obviously, and 3, there was an open journalist job that I wanted. So this one night, I am working quite late at night in my rental home. My office has this huge window behind the desk. It has a gorgeous view of the night sky and some sparse forest. I get up to grab a drink while I'm writing some article about local businesses and other boring stuff that no one really cares about. When I get back, I get this distinct feeling that something's wrong. I have the curtains on the window partially shut. I can't see anything at this point, and I chalk it up to it being late at night, dark. I'm still in my unfamiliar home, so I keep writing, ignoring it for a time. I notice that I keep hearing this weird, hoarse breathing sound. For a while, I think it's from my computer. I start clicking around to see if I accidentally have anything open that's playing audio or something. I end up muting my PC, but I can still hear it. I'm starting to get spooked. I unplug the speakers. It keeps happening. I feel this pit in my stomach as the obvious finally hits me. I look up at the window. I squint and turn on my desk lamp. I can barely see, but this thing that looks like it has a scraggly beard is up against my window, and it's big and hairy. It's just staring at me, completely neutral, no expression. I stare him in the eyes as he slowly backs off, not breaking eye contact. At this point, I always keep the curtains shut now. I don't want to know if there's one of those things outside of my window at night. So I doubt anybody will believe me, and this isn't exactly the scariest thing that you're going to hear about, but it scared the hell out of me, that's for sure. I was living in one of the few urban areas in West Virginia. I was smoking a cigarette outside my apartment building. I live on the first floor, and my landlord doesn't let me smoke indoors, which, yeah, I get it. It's late. The sky is dark, and I can already see the moon in the sky. There's nobody out on the streets this late. It's kind of creepy, but also kind of cozy in a way. I take a drag from my cigarette and turn to my side. I almost shit myself because there's this really tall guy suddenly standing next to me. I was chest height with him, and I'm 6'3", 6'3.5", but 6'3". I look up at him. He looks like the dude from Hatred. I accidentally snort a little in amusement, since it was the first thing my brain went to. This guy doesn't talk, doesn't really even breathe. I'm immediately hit with an overwhelming smell of blood. I realize that the guy's hair is soaked and matted with blood. In fact, he's covered in it. Carefully, I back away from him, and he's built like a moose. I bolt into my apartment building. I call the non-emergency line to tell them about this guy. Nothing happens for a few more hours. It's after midnight. I can't sleep. I'm still jumpy from this encounter. How did the guy sneak up on me like that? but I'm just starting to calm down when all of a sudden the apartment door starts rattling and banging like the SWAT team is trying to get in. I scramble off the couch. My mind is racing. My first instinct tells me to push myself against the door. The rattling immediately stops. I peek outside through the peephole. There's a massive bloodstain on the wall that matches the silhouette of the guy perfectly. Then, the strangest thing happens. I watch as the blood slowly dissipates like an old Nintendo 64 graphic and doesn't even leave a trace. What the hell did I see? Again, I don't expect anybody to believe me. I'm just scared and confused. This happened in 2015 in Brooke County, West Virginia. I was 15 years old at the time. I was going to my cousin's last football game with my family. He was a senior in high school. Nothing eventful happened during the game, but afterwards, everyone gets pictures and it's a send-off and all that stuff. I decided to stay the weekend with my cousin because I don't live in the area, so it's like a new thing to me. I get in my cousin's car and I head back to his house. He lives pretty far back in the woods, but not totally removed from society. On the way to his house, you have to pass by this small farm. Honestly, I never even knew what they did, but they had a wire fence surrounding a field, which I assumed was some kind of pasture for cows and stuff. But anyways, we're just passing the place when I see a mass of white beside the gate. I ask my cousin to stop and back up because there was something near the fence. He backs up and puts the headlights to the gate, and we both saw something that we'll never forget. There was a bright white, almost reflective, like strips on construction vents or road signs. That was the color of this thing. Its body seemed to resemble a horse or a cow, but it was much too big, because it was laying down like a cat does when they hide their legs under their body. I say that because we didn't actually see any legs. It was facing away from us, but we could see some sort of protrusion that was the neck or head. It had some sort of appendages at the sides, which honestly looked a lot like folded wings. It never moved, but we could tell it was alive because it was making small breathing motions, like it was breathing heavily. We stared at this thing for a good 5 or 10 minutes, discussing it, while it never looked our way, and never even acknowledged our presence. We say that we should just leave it be, and we continued back to my cousin's place. We decided against telling my aunt and uncle, and decided to check back there in the morning, since it was already way past 11 p.m. In the morning, we go back there and all we find is some matted down grass where the thing was chilling, but the shape was just so weird. I don't know, maybe it was a cow, but I really don't think so. I don't know what it was. This is something that happened during a not so good period of my life. My wife and I had lost our house and we were living out of my truck. Now, it sounds terrible on the outside, but we did have some really sweet moments together. So we were camping in this Western Virginia quiet zone. It was super beautiful. It was gorgeous, with the mountain views, the rainbows, the works. It was late summer, but pretty hot that night. We decided that we didn't want to cook, and we wanted to check out a town nearby for burgers and beers. So we head out around 9:30 p.m. It's pitch black out, apart from what my headlights light up. There's winding country roads, as you can imagine. We have a CB radio and a camera mounted on my dash. We reach this long stretch of straight road that has abandoned houses on the left side, and then suddenly, my CB radio flicks on and starts making this super weird mechanical screeching sound. My dash cam flicks off, and then my radio screen flicks off too. I think, this is weird. What's going on? As I'm trying to focus on what's going on and trying to stay on the road, my wife gasps and points in front of us. We see this huge black shape. It's roughly humanoid looking, maybe 7 feet tall, on the left side of the double yellow road. It's completely black, not see-through, and not really furry either. It looks almost vaguely cloudy in consistency. It turns toward us as I slam on the brakes. We hear all of our stuff start flying everywhere in the back. The shadow thing drops down real low to the pavement and then crawls or slinks off the road. Kinda like if you've seen Star Wars, how General Grievous walks on all his appendages. Pretty much exactly like that. And then disappears out of our line of sight behind a bush. When it does this, the CB radio stops screeching and everything goes silent. And then we hear a deep growl coming from near where the shadow thing crawled away to. I floor it. It took us getting another mile down the road before, randomly, everything sprung back to life. The dash cam and truck radio screen turned back on simultaneously. My wife and I ended up sleeping in town that night. The next day, we checked my dash cam. The camera records in 3-minute chunks, and the memory card is full of clips. Just the last 3 minutes of our ride is captured and repeated 50 times. No other clips saved. The dash cam hasn't worked right since that night. What do you think we experienced here? It was me and my friends, a group of 3 of us, in West Virginia. It was mid-November, very remote, not many people, if any. We were out hiking, looking for hunting spots in a river valley. After some walking around, we discovered a few decrepit wooden tree stands on top of a hill. These were probably 40+ years old. They were totally rotted, but if there were that many tree stands up there, clearly it would be a good hunting spot. So we set up our blind. We have a very good 360-degree visual. We could see hundreds of yards in each direction. After setting everything up, we leave, because we're not going to be hunting for another couple days. Here's where it gets a little interesting. The location that we found is only about a mile hike into the woods from the road that we used. So we set out that morning, 5 a.m. The woods were eerily still, even for mid-November. There were leaves everywhere. We were making a lot of noise walking and talking. We didn't really bother trying to be quiet on the way in there. Our voices echo through the valley. We have flashlights on this entire walk. We get to our blind. It's still eerily quiet. We ended up making a ruckus by accident inside the blind, just trying to get settled in. A lot of us make a bunch of jokes about scaring the deer away with our noise. But then we turn off our lights and we settle in. 5 minutes pass. We hear footsteps outside the blind, about 10 yards away. This is very strange. We had heard nothing. You'd think we'd hear something coming from a distance, and deer don't really make noise in leaves, and it sounds bipedal, not like a squirrel. So we're like, oh crap. It's pitch black inside the blind. If all of us had a face, you could probably akin it to the meme of the confused Pikachu face. That's the look that we all had at this point. We should have scared away any wildlife with our bombastic entrance. We begin to think that maybe we have stumbled onto private property and that there's someone who's followed us and is just going to escort us out. I muster the courage to say, "Hello?" The footsteps come closer. Someone else whispers, "Oh, F." The footsteps approach right up to our tent. All of us are frozen in fear. We begin to hear very heavy, ragged breathing, not snorting or growling, just very audible, heavy breathing. It was the kind of breathing that somebody would do if they were trying to fog up a mirror. My instincts start to kick in. I yell out, "Hello?" at the top of my lungs. I smack the side of the blind as hard as I could. We're met by silence. No footsteps. No sound of leaves crunching, running away. We scramble for our flashlights. It takes a few seconds. We jump out of the blind with 1,000 lumen light. There's nothing. We can see hundreds of yards in every direction. We walk around our blind. There's no sight of animal tracks. We're very spooked. The forest eventually comes alive about 10 minutes later. There's no other weird encounters the rest of the day, but we also don't really see any deer either. What did we experience? We try to rationalize it as a black bear, but this doesn't really add up. Black bears are usually quite skittish. Our loud entrance should have scared the bear away. Beyond that, the first "hello" should have scared the black bear away as well. Then the breathing. I've never heard a black bear breathe like a person. There's a possibility that it was a human messing with us and was hiding around a tree or something when we jumped out looking for him. But this doesn't seem plausible either, as they would know that we were hunting and had guns. It seems unusually stupid on their part to ambush a group of hunters in the dark without even calling yourself out. And, like I said, we didn't really see any deer that day, but 2 days prior, we had seen over 20. It checks a few boxes of a Bigfoot, maybe a skinwalker, but we're really not sure. We left that day with no deer. We just didn't go back to that spot, really. But one thing that still scares me is that we didn't bother looking up into the trees. So, what if it was up there, and it was watching us all day? This was a comment left on a video where I requested people to say where they wanted a video to be about, and this one was from West Virginia, which is what the video is about. I thought it was a good idea. And I can't tell who the commenter was, as it has the user-6x8 and it's just a string of numbers, but it was an interesting comment. So, if you're watching, I hope I can do your story justice. Hey Leafy, I never left you a good comment, so I'm going to try to make up for lost time with this one. Earlier, you asked your viewers to leave you ideas for places to narrate about, and my advice would be southern West Virginia. With that, I'll give you a story about what happened to me as a child in a place where I grew up called Beartown in West Virginia. I had to have been around 3 or 4 years old. and my dad and my uncles and a few of my cousins had decided to take off to go to Florida, supposedly to look for work, and ended up getting arrested and having to come back home. Anyway, us kids were left with my mom and aunt and girl cousins to watch after us while they were gone. This was the early 80s, and way before smartphones, and I don't even know if we had a regular telephone up on the hill of my Aunt Rosemary's and Uncle Vonden's, who had left with Dad and the rest of them, while Mom and us kids stayed with Rosie and the girls. Anyway, for years people would see something that kind of looked like a big ape or a monkey around there, and there were several tales around the area about it, including quite a few told by my own relatives. My story, however, involves a night when all the kids were put to bed. We were laying in the middle room of the house, which had a long porch on the front of it that was probably 8 to 10 feet wide and stretched about 18 or 20 feet or so along the front of the house. I remember I was laying in bed with my aunt and maybe one of the older girl cousins and a few of us kids. There was another bed and a bunch of kids with my mom and younger sister and baby brother, who was an infant at the time, was over in it, and the bed we were in was next to the windows, closer to the porch. I had either fallen asleep or was almost asleep when I woke up to every woman, kid, and dog in the house screaming and crying loudly. I didn't know what was happening. Then I could hear something thudding and slamming plumb up on the other side of the porch. Then it was like it leapt back down to the other side of the porch and kept doing that for I don't know how long. I was scared shitless myself by then, and I remember the windows next to the porch were just made of glass, and I was scared that the thing was going to smash through one of them any minute. Thank God it never did. I think my Aunt Darlene finally came over and grabbed me up, and we all piled into one bed. But I remember thinking to this day, why was I left over there next to the window for so long, before anybody came to get me away from it? Anyway, if that thing wasn't a Sasquatch or a Bigfoot, it was missing a damn good chance. There were other stories about it, in one of which a big brown hairy arm was reaching down out of the ceiling. It had busted toward two of my guy cousins, and one was swatting at it with a broom, while the other just stood there, staring, looking like he was going to crap his pants. But that was right around the same time on a different occasion. Anyway, there's a lot more stories than just that one about whatever was around McDowell County and southern West Virginia. We're talking about a place loaded with witchcraft, ghosts, and weird occurrences of various types. You name it. So thank you for that comment, and thank you for the kind words at the end of the channel. But that was a really good story. So, that inspired this video on West Virginia. So, what'd you think of those? Let me know which one was your favorite one down in the comments. Do you have one of your own? I have an email in the description below that you can send them to if you want to. If you want to comment a state or a place that maybe would be good for a video, then feel free to do that as well. Also in the description, and on my channel banner now I think, I have links to a PayPal and a Patreon if you would like to support the channel that way. But as always, just watching the videos and liking and subscribing is very helpful, and I hope you all enjoy it. And with that, I think I will see you in the next one. Thank you for pulling up a stump. Thank you for watching.